Yo, what's going on YouTube? And welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte. We are taking a look today, continuing my predictions for the 2021 offseason for non-playoff teams. And we're looking today at the Vancouver Canucks, who have had a pretty rough season. A team that, guys, if you go to the beginning of this season, I had Vancouver winning the North Division. And you look how the mighty have fallen in that regard. We'll be taking a look at the Canucks in this video. So, by popular demand, we are continuing my predictions for the 2021 offseason, and today it's the Canucks. And the Canucks are a weird team. They're a team that, like I said, the expectations were so high in Vancouver this season, going to the Western Conference Finals last year. The expectation was, yes, despite losing Chris Tanev and Jacob Markstrom, that this team would indeed be back in the postseason. But it seems like the losses of guys like Tyler Toffoli and guys like I just mentioned, Jacob Markstrom and Chris Tanev, was just too much for the team to handle for some of the young guys. And not to mention, they did have some injuries along the way. They lost guys like Bo Horvat for consecutive parts of the season. Elias Pettersson. They were down goaltenders at points. Goaltenders didn't play their best throughout the whole season. They had the whole bug situation. So there was a lot that the Canucks had to go through this season, and it definitely affected how things worked out for them. So we're going to start things off with a buyout. I think the Vancouver Canucks buy out the rest of Michael Furland's contract. I believe it's only 3 years that they have to buy it out. So that's a worthy buyout. Get it done and just be done with it. Because the problem is, Michael Furland, unless he is guaranteed to be playing next season, I'd cut the cord. You need help up front. And if Michael Furland will not be in the lineup, it's costing the Canucks big time. That is not looking like the best signing by Jim Benning. And he's had a couple of questionable moves, especially up front. So if you're able to just let go of Michael Furland, get that out of your system, move on from that cap space that they desperately need, it may be worth it to buy out Michael Furland. So I'm buying out Michael Furland. At the draft table, if they draft first or second overall, that's the easy pick. But with where they are, likely between 7 and 10, I think they should go with a particular player, and that is Arttu Räty. Now, we've seen the Canucks do this before. A guy that was projected to be top 2 or 3 in Vasily Podkolzin just in 2019. He was projected to go top 3, ends up falling in the lap of the Canucks at 9 or 10. And voila, look at the expectations for Podkolzin. He has the skill, he has some maturity issues and off-ice stuff, but Jim Benning has not been afraid of that in the past. Will he take exception to that this season? Now, Arttu Räty, it's not as much of it's a little bit different from Podkolzin. It's not necessarily he's got, off the ice issues. It's more about his play in the SHL. He has not performed that well in the SHL. He's played well in the under 18 with guys his own age. The second he plays with the big boys and the men, he has struggled mightily over the past year and a half in the bigger leagues. So that's something to keep an eye on with a guy like Arttu Räty, but he could be a center, a left winger, and right down the road, I'm sure you've heard of Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. This guy reminds me a lot of like a Ryan Nugent-Hopkins player, but he's Finnish. And he kind of fits in with that European build of the Canucks with guys like Pettersson. And it just works out really well. I think that would be a great addition to the Canucks. Now this one may rattle my Canucks fans just a little bit. I know my Canucks fans are out there. You guys are very supportive of the channel. Sometimes don't like my takes too much, but this is another big take here. As I think, as the general manager, the Vancouver Canucks, I am going to trade Brock Boeser. Now, there is issues to this because the problem is you're looking at a guy that has not been in the lineup consistently for the past couple years for the Canucks. He's a good goal scorer. He's a great guy. That only gets you so far if you're not in the lineup, and that's been Brock Boeser's biggest problem. He has been injured, riddled with injuries since he has come to the NHL. Even in his rookie season, you could have argued he won the Calder against Matt Barzal, but because he missed games at the end of the year, that really hampered his ability, and he's had struggles with injuries ever since. So teams may look away from Brock Boeser because of the injury stuff. But the good news is, if a team is desperate enough, and I don't want to say it in this regard, but let's be honest, there are going to be bigger fish to fry this offseason. Teams are probably going to ask about Timo Meier in San Jose, Kevin LeBanc. What about Buffalo? You got guys like Sam Reinhart that could come available. So, And Calgary, right down the road, Johnny Gaudreau. A lot of people are talking about maybe him being traded this offseason. So there are bigger fish to fry for teams that are in the market for wingers. So where does Brock Boeser sit? Probably not at the top. Jim Benning probably won't get prime assets for Boeser at this point. So it makes the question, what do you do with Boeser? Well, ideally you get a really talented player, but what is the cost? But ideally you make a trade where you get a defenseman in return, because you want to make, if you can, a fairly close in terms of value trade, a hockey trade. We've seen this before. Seth Jones for Ryan Johansson, right? Adam Larson for Taylor Hall. We've seen how that's worked out. Oilers fans definitely remember that one, and it's not pretty. So that's the thing. The Canucks got to be careful with this, because these one-for-one trades can really be detrimental if you're on the bad side of it, because there's not just one it's not one guy for four different assets. No. It's one guy for one guy. So it's easy to compare points and stuff like that right up against each other, and that's the risk that Jim Benning runs. And when he's going to be the general manager this offseason, but when you're on the hot seat going into next season, the Aquilinis, again, time's ticking on their clock. They got to get this team back in the postseason. It's Jim Benning's job to get it done now. So to trade Brock Boeser for 2 firsts and a prospect and this guy and that guy, it doesn't matter. They don't want that. They want to win now. So who are some guys they could look at? Well, I think it's a bit of a stretch to look in Montreal at Alexander Romanov, but you should at least call Mark Bergevin. He's made one-for-one deals before. Shea Weber for PK Subban. He's made these moves in the past. So to say it's a stretch is crazy. But again, with the Canadiens' salary cap issues, they maybe explore the possibility if, again, this is a situation where you could catch a team that's desperate. They need goal scoring help. They're going to want to trade out Jonathan Drouin. Well, what if you make a deal for Boeser, Drouin, Romanov, and you find a way to make that work with draft picks to equal it out? Could you see that happen? Because that way, Jonathan Drouin comes in, a guy that's had his own personal issues recently. He struggled with the Habs. Move him to Vancouver. He could fill Boeser's spot. He could play center, be that Ryan Nugent-Hopkins-esque player for the Canucks. Again, it seems like a bit of a stretch, but they could also pick up, a consolation prize of right shot defenseman Alexander Romanov. Now, the problem is the Canucks have their own salary cap issues. And that's the big reason why they'd probably want to move out Brock Boeser, because they could fill in a guy like, say, Russian Vasily Podkolzin as soon as next season to take that role for a lot cheaper than what they've gotten from Brock Boeser. So that's where the Canucks stand. I think they realize they have to sign guys like Pettersson down the road. They're eventually going to have to sign these rookies like, Vasily Podkolzin. They're going to have to give big contracts to goaltenders down the road. So there's a lot going on in Vancouver in that regard. They're going to have to pay Quinn Hughes and Pettersson this summer. So there's a lot going on in Vancouver. Jim Benning's going to want to move cap. And I'm, as the general manager, going to want to move some salary cap as well. I'm buying out Michael Ferland. I find a way to move Brock Boeser. I hate to say it, you're not going to bring back Alex Edler. You're going to rely on the young guys. I would rely more on Olli Juolevi. See what he's got in the tank for me. If not, I'm trading Olli Juolevi at next year's deadline. But again, that's during the season. So that's another thing. If Juolevi, I could get a deal for Juolevi, I would maybe look at that. So there's a lot of different things you could do. What if you packaged up Juolevi and Boeser for a Romanov? I mean, again, Romanov is a very valuable piece in Montreal because they need defensemen, young defensemen. But again, if you catch a team that's desperate, you could get that deal done. Or what about the Colorado Avalanche? I mean, again, they've got a lot of wingers. Just a couple years ago, they were looking at Artemi Panarin. What if they look at Brock Boeser? Or the Arizona Coyotes. Talk about a team that's desperate. What if you do something where it's Oliver Ekman-Larsson for Brock Boeser? Again, Boeser's a lot younger, but again, if you retain enough salary in a certain way, you could make that deal maybe work. So let me know what you guys think. In the comment section down below, what do you think of the Vancouver Canucks? What kind of moves could you see them make? I think they're going to be fairly quiet in free agency because, again, they have their own fish to fry this offseason. Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes. So, this mic is not looking too hot. But that's it for this video. Guys, let me know what you think in the comments down below. What would you do as the general manager of the Canucks here in the 2021 offseason? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And if you guys like what we're doing here at Goal Line Hockey, want to see the latest news around the NHL, you guys know what to do. Make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and an even bigger subscribe down below. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you guys next time.